Welcome to the Momnesia podcast, a podcast for moms where we share the stories we want to remember and the ones we wish we could forget. We're your hosts, Julie Short and Sarah McLaughlin. Sarah, can you believe it?
Believe what?
This is it. This is our last episode of season 2.
I can't believe it.
This has gone on for a long time.
It has, because you said we started this season out with our moms, and I was like, was that this lifetime?
Yeah, it did feel like a very long time ago. That was October 14th. So our first episode of the season was September 30th. So we've been going for a long time.
Yeah. So we've had 14 different women.
Yes.
Right? You were saying 14 different amazing women this season.
We know how to pick them.
We do. But tell me, you were telling me about something really interesting your dad said.
Yeah. I was walking with my parents the other day, and my dad was saying, I had no idea how many women suffered from postpartum depression, because they were catching up on some episodes. They've been traveling for the month of February, and he's like, yeah, we're getting caught up on all of Momnesia, and I just can't believe the amount of loss. And it's true, as we kind of look back and reflect over this season, it really was marked with a lot of depression and loss and grief, and once again, was not intentional. And that is what was kind of surprising to me, that the stories that people were willing to share and the amount of vulnerability that they were willing to give to us and to our listeners, it was pretty remarkable.
Right. And two things about that. First, your dad is one of the kindest people I know, and he's sensitive to that and has been in ministry his whole life. So this is someone who knows a lot about people and is willing to see it and hear it and is still surprised. And then with us, I'm like, like you said just now and have said many times, like, we don't know what people are going to share. When we first ask them, we kind of give them the prompts and may or may not know what stories they're going to bring. But these are women that have either reached out to us or we've sought out because they are like bright, mover, shaker, funny, great communicators. You know, they're people that we're drawn to. And yet they're getting all that done and putting all that good into the world with these stories. Yeah. So we just did not know what we were going to hear. And we're thankful to get to hear that. And we're awed by at least for me, I feel like, wow, they're very resilient and they're very strong, and yet like they have such character to be willing to let us in. So yeah, it's pretty amazing.
So if you haven't had a chance to listen to all of those episodes, there are, I believe, 12 episodes outside of our Mom's edition and our initial season opener of our giant catch up. We hope you will listen to each of those stories and maybe share them with someone who might benefit from hearing from them.
Yeah. It's amazing how many of our guests said, well, I went back and listened to this or that, or maybe even through a mutual friend knew someone else. And how I'm thinking about when Shannon knew Spangler came, and we had asked her to come, not knowing that she had been clinging to something Christina Smith in season 1.
Right.
And so how these women have even our guests, our women have like spurred each other on. So yeah, I do hope that if you've heard one and someone comes to mind, you would share it with them.
Exactly. And we do appreciate the feedback that you've given us through the survey. We are taking all of that information that you've given to us, and I know that you've asked for some specific topics or for some specific speakers. We can't always guarantee that we're going to get to those topics since we aren't.
It's hard to get to Michelle Obama.
or even specific topics, since we don't know what people are going to give us. But we do plan on kind of sharing some of those needs, some of those desires that you guys have with our future guests, so that if they do have a story that might land on that topic, that they would be able to share that. So thanks so much for giving us your feedback as well over season 2. We aren't sure how long of a break we're going to take before season 3 starts, but we will come back. So don't worry about that. We're going to be reaching out to new guests and planning for season 3 over the next few weeks. But before we close things out, we have one more awesome guest.
And she's kind of a queen in the podcast world.
Yeah, she is. She is the queen of podcasts. She started her own podcasting company.
She was actually, you probably know this, featured in the Indianapolis Business Journal last week.
I saw that. That was so exciting. We're excited to cheer on our friend Lindsay Tjepkema as she comes to share with us and also talk a little bit about her new business, Casted. Let's go get her.
Cool. All right, Julie, tell us how you met our next guest, Lindsay.
Yes, Lindsay reached out to me about a year ago when the podcast first started. She is a fellow podcaster, and I think we were just looking to try and find someone who is in a similar spot and was willing to meet for coffee and talk. And we hit it off right away. And I'm so glad that I met her. I feel like she has already pointed us to so many great people and has helped us kind of move along in our journey as well. And I'm so excited to hear about your new journey at Casted. Welcome, Lindsay. We're so glad to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be on the show that brought us together in the first place.
Yes, exactly. Lindsay is the co-founder and CEO of Casted.
Awesome.
And we haven't met since you've started this new gig. And so I'm super excited to hear about all the details. Tell us about Casted. Tell us your mom stats.
Yeah. Okay. So mom stats. I am the mom of 3 boys, including twins. So I have
You're a twin mom?
I am a twin mom. Yeah. I've got an 8-year-old and 2 6-year-olds.
Okay.
And people ask me if I have any pets, and I say, yes, I live with 3 bear cubs. So no, there are no actual animals in this house because there's just enough crazy already. So that's me as a mom. And otherwise, when I'm not pulling apart wrestling animals that are my children, I'm the CEO and co-founder of a tech startup here in Indy. It's called Casted, and we are the first and only B2B podcasting platform. So basically we say, go create a great show on behalf of your brand, and we want to help you take it from there. So once you have a great episode that you're really excited about, we help with everything from hosting, syndicating, and helping you use it across lots of other marketing channels, getting into the hands of your sales team. And probably one of the most exciting things is metrics that really matter for a B2B brand. So
what does B2B stand for?
Business to business. Okay. Yeah. Good question. Yeah. I'm so in it all the time that it's easy to go down that rabbit hole, but yeah, it's, business to business.
Cool.
And business to business would mean that you're a business that's selling to other businesses. Correct?
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. So not selling to individuals.
Right. Podcasts that are on behalf of larger companies where they're talking about like thought leadership or really appealing to their audiences in mass and sharing thought leadership and subject matter expertise. The metrics that a B2B marketer is quite different from something that kind of a solo podcaster or something that's more of a hobby. They're looking to just grow the audience size and track number of downloads, whereas a brand is looking for something different. So yeah, that's us. That's us.
Gotcha. Very cool.
And you guys are located down in Indy. Is that correct? I just saw you guys moving offices on Instagram the other day. Where are you guys located?
Yeah. So we are right downtown. We just moved. We're part of the High Alpha Venture Studio. So we were in their building and we started to grow and had the opportunity to move still right downtown, but a beautiful office space where we're growing fast.
Cool.
So Lindsay, tell us, how did you get started in podcasting? Because you were working for a different company at the time when I met you, doing a podcast on behalf of your organization. How did you get started? What brought you into this kind of fun new medium?
Yeah, so I am a marketer. I've been a marketer my whole career in this world. So I have been what is now my target audience for my whole career. And so mostly on the content marketing side. So I owned everything from like the blog and keynote speeches and website content for this enterprise software company downtown in Indy. It was a global company, and I had the privilege of running large part of their marketing efforts. The last year or so that I was there, I said, our brand is missing something, literally missing our voice. And so we need to fix that. And so I pushed for a podcast and had the pleasure of working to build it along with a really great team and launch it. And I got to be the host. So it's very weird for me to be on this side of the microphone. And I quickly ran into a lot of the challenges that we are solving for now today at Casted. So I was a host in a past life, and I'm a host now again at Casted. So we have a podcast over there called the Casted Podcast.
Okay.
So that's, I'm usually on the other side of the microphone.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you're doing great. So
good job.
Just know that.
I know the pressure is much higher on this side. I gotta say, guys, this is I feel like I just need to turn the tables here.
Yeah.
Be a lot more comfortable.
Well, besides Momnesia and the Casted podcast, what are some of your favorite podcasts to listen to? Are you like a true crime kind of gal, or do you like more narrative and storytelling, or what do you like to listen to?
So I'm a nerd. I mean, I listen to ones that are kind of related to work. So right now I'm listening to a lot of startup and venture capital related podcasts. Funny enough, Startup by Alex Bloomberg, he went on to create Gimlet. His first series or his first season was about the creation of Gimlet, which is a podcasting company. Yes. So that one, it was a podcast about the beginning of a podcast company while I was starting a podcast company. So that was like as meta gets. So
that is Inception right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I go back and listen to that one over and over every once in a while. But also for this audience, one I really enjoy is Women at Work. It's by Harvard Business Review.
Yes, love Harvard Business Review, Women at Work. That's one of my favorites.
I do too. Yeah. And then, I just, that's the world that I like to live in. There's also locally, Rebecca Fleetwood Hession has one called Badass Women's Council. I don't know if I can say that on this podcast,
you can. Jen talks about that one too.
I just met her too. It's crazy because Jen told me about her, Jen Petra, who we just had on the podcast and who told us, I think you
love Jen Petra.
Somehow we're all connected.
Yeah.
But she told me about her on a Saturday, and then I happened to be doing music leading worship at our church, Grace Church. And the next morning, this gal came up to me to introduce herself, and it was Rebecca.
Really?
And how weird is that? 2 days in a row that her name would come up and all that kind of stuff. So anyways, that's awesome what they're doing.
She's amazing. And just giving a shout out to her, she's actually my coach. She was a friend first. I also met her. So here's how it all comes together. I did the same thing to her. I listened to her podcast. I found out that she was local because she was talking about some things that really resonated with me. And I just reached out and was like, hey, I love your podcast. You live locally. Can I meet you for coffee? And she was like, yes. And it was one of those things that instantaneously, kind of like when you and I met, Julie, it was, I was like, yep, we have been friends forever. We just didn't know it.
Right.
And so she was fantastic and was kind of there with me as I was starting Casted. And it turned into like, hey, you're basically coaching me. Will you officially, felt like I was proposing, will you be my coach?
Right.
And she's doing this amazing thing called Rise and Thrive, where she's pulled together a group of high achieving women locally. And it's like this whole life, 7 months, 7 women, 7 coaches. It's
neat.
Amazing. And her podcast is Badass Women's Council. So definitely have a listen to that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Very fun. Mm-hmm. Well, we have brought you here to tell us some stories today. And where would you like to take us first? One you want to remember or one you wish you could forget?
well, I feel like everybody does this, but I got to get the one that I want to forget out of the way so that I can move on from it. Right.
Understand.
Yeah. And I think for me, as I was thinking about doing this today, I was like, what do I want to get into? And the thing that comes to mind is after the twins were born, and I had a 2-year-old and these tiny little baby twins, and my husband was traveling a lot for work. And I, when they were 12 weeks old, I went back to work after maternity leave, and we had just moved to Indianapolis, to the Indianapolis area. And we moved for work and to try to kind of right size the cost of living, because we were living in Chicago.
Okay.
And we had the opportunity to move here, but we didn't know anyone. And I mean, no one. Wow. We didn't have like friends of friends or like, the cousin of somebody we went to high school with, like nobody. We knew our realtor who we found online. And that was it. And so we moved when I was pregnant, and within like a 1-week period, I moved from downtown Chicago, which I loved, and to literally our subdivision was at the time in the middle of a cornfield.
Right. The booming metropolis of suburban fishers.
Yes.
Yes. Which I love. I mean, nothing against it. It was just a culture shock.
Yeah.
Found out that I knew I was pregnant, but found out it was twins. And then therefore we realized that the Jeep that we had just bought wasn't going to work with 3 car seats. So we had to trade that in for a van. So it was quite a culture shock. And then, a few months later, the twins came along, and I was so alone, and I was so exhausted on a level that just a sustained level of exhaustion that I've never experienced ever before. Like we're talking an hour or 2 of sleep piecemealed over the course of 3 or 4 hours for months. Right. And, I just remember feeling just numb, like not sad, not, I was definitely not in a good place postpartum depression wise, but I didn't realize that was it. I was just numb and exhausted. And I was just like, I don't know how there's ever going to be another side of this. I don't know how there's ever going to be this gets better. We wanted and hoped for and prayed for these, not 1, not 2, but 3 little miracles. And they were all healthy, and here they were. And it was so much more than I could possibly handle. We didn't have family nearby. We didn't know anybody. And looking back to that, it's crazy because there's parts that I just don't remember. And that's the part that kills me, is I had these 3 beautiful, beautiful, beautiful little ones. And there's parts that I just don't remember. My husband would be like, yeah, do you remember that day? And it was so crazy. And we tried to, take the kids to the park. Who knows? I'm like, no. He's like, yeah, you remember. And it was raining. And I'm like, like, there are just things I just don't remember. And we just call that survival mode. Like we were just trying to survive. And I don't like looking back on the first year of my twins' life that way, and I remember my older son was just so confused. I mean, he was 2 and he was like, what is happening? And as it happens, like he regressed in a lot of ways and just got super clingy. And, so yeah, that was really hard. And, you want that time. And, if you have time off with your kids when they're first born, to be snuggly and magical. And even if it's overwhelming, to be special. And I just remember being like, I don't know how I'm gonna make it out of this. People ask me, they're like, wow, twins and a 2-year-old, how in the world, how'd you make it? I'm like, I almost didn't.
Right.
Like, I almost didn't. And they laugh and I'm like, no, I almost didn't. Yeah. So yeah, that was, it's hard. Cause I wish I could forget that, but it's kind of the opposite. Cause I wish I could remember more. I wish that more of it was still actually in my brain. And that exhaustion hadn't wiped it out. Cause I just remember, standing, I think a lot of moms have this memory of like standing in the shower, just like crying and numb and like, I don't know what's happening. And how is this how it is? Right.
Right.
And yeah, slowly over, I mean, I wish it was not that long of time, but it was really over the course of a year. You know, you get a little bit more sleep. And by the end of the year, it was like 5 hours a night. And, I mean, I remember the twins, at some point they started walking, I guess. I don't remember that. Like, I don't remember them taking their first steps.
Now, so
Yeah, they walk now. Funny how that works.
Do they eat now too? Are they able to eat now?
They eat. Yes. No more bottles. Yeah. Funny how that happened. And that's the thing is, like before we started recording it, I was like, yeah, I think I have a thing to share. It's crazy. Cause I wish there's some things that I wish I could forget, like that numbness. And I remember standing in the middle of the living room, holding one of them and just being like, I don't know what to do. Like I'm so alone and I'm so like just lost for what in the world to do right now. Just cry. Like he was crying. I was crying. The other baby was crying. Jackson came downstairs and was crying and everybody was crying. Right. And the thing is that they're here. One, they got here in the first place and they're here and they're happy. And my mom has always said, as long as they know they're loved, like that's it, right? If you come out of this whole mom game and your kids know that they were loved, that they are loved, that's kind of
you're winning.
That's kind of the biggest deal.
Yep.
Yeah.
You're winning. So that, and the other thing that I do wish I could forget, which is a mom thing, but it's actually, it has come back to haunt me time and time again, personally and professionally, because I'm an achiever. Like I'm going to do it. And I'm going to do it really well. I'm super competitive. And since I've experienced that level of exhaustion, I subconsciously compare any other time I'm tired to that.
Yeah.
And so most recently, and it's like most recently, actually, even just a few weeks ago. So I had been really burning the candle at both ends and, working hard on the business and, startup founder life and trying to be there for the kids and, I was getting up at 4:30 in the morning to go work out every morning and kind of working late. And I was tired and I was exhausted, but without even thinking of it, somebody actually had to point it out to me. I was like, well, no, I'm not tired. That was tired. I've experienced tired. And it was when, after the twins were born, that was tired. And it was actually Erica Ballard. I don't know if anybody who's listening knows of Erica Ballard. She's amazing. And you should follow her on Instagram because she's fantastic. And she was talking to me from a health perspective. And she was like, do not compare those two. They are not, one does not equal the other.
Do you remember you couldn't remember anything from that time?
Exactly.
Right.
She was like,
Not
that's right. That's not like that's exhausted. Everything else is fine. So that I wish I could forget that level of exhaustion just so I stopped comparing everything to it. That would be great. So.
My litmus test is, it doesn't really make a lot of sense, but when I think about how tiring a certain season is or how hard, then I always say, but someone crossed the Bering Strait with children. I don't know why.
Oh my word.
Or I get worried about, the kids have been in their car seats for so long and we've been driving, for 15 hours. And then I think, but it's not like a covered wagon with ice. Like it's not the Bering Strait.
Yeah.
It could be worse. We've talked about this a lot on the podcast, that good things and hard things can be one and the same. Like those two things can coexist. And I certainly relate with the level of exhaustion with kids in general, but especially with the twins. And I think a big takeaway I'm gathering from what you're sharing is when I think about it first person, like my perspective of how hard that was. And same, ours were, 7, 5, and 3 when our twins came along. And it felt like a level of chaos that I forget a lot, or I feel bad. I feel guilt that the other kids got neglected and they're raising themselves for years. That's what it feels like. But then when I hear you or hear someone talk about it, I actually feel wowed. Like it's been a gift to me to talk to people who are like, I don't remember that because it was so hard. And I think, and yet you still did it and they are thriving and but I've never been able to give myself grace in that area till I've heard other people talk about it. And it's kind of given me a slightly different perspective. Even people that have been like, oh, you had a NICU stay and we were figuring this out and that. And I think, how did you do it? Oh my gosh, we did that.
Yeah.
Not like we're awesome, but like you just look back, and even if you don't remember it, you can at least, when someone else says it, acknowledge that like somehow there were tons of graces to carry you through all that.
100%. I couldn't say it better myself. It's so true. And that's why, I mean, just what you all are doing here on this show is so important for that very reason, because there's somebody listening who's going through the same thing. And, you know, in your other shows too, where it's like, oh, wow, how did she do that? Oh, wow, that's very similar to my story. And like, maybe I should give myself a little grace. And it's crazy how the mind works that way. Sometimes you need that context or someone else's story.
Totally.
So Lindsay, I want to go back to when you said you were out for 12 weeks for maternity leave. So tell us about what that tiredness looked like at work. I mean,
how'd you figure that out?
That is crazy in and of itself, you know?
Well, thankfully I was working remotely. So I was working for a company that was in a different state. So I didn't have to dress myself every day. Thank goodness.
Nice.
And there was a time, there were a couple of years that both my husband and I looked at each other and we were like, and it was a full time, I was a marketing director. It just happened, I wasn't on site. Right. And there was a long time that was like, how am I ever going to go be at an office? Like, how is that? And it's amazing how short-sighted that can be, because I literally was like, I don't know how this is ever going to be a thing. Like, I'm never, ever, ever going to be able to not work remotely, like ever. Right. Well, that wasn't true, because I've been doing that for the last 5 years, is going downtown for work. And it's just amazing that lesson of, you know, nothing is permanent, good and bad, good, bad, and otherwise. Right. And no matter how much you think you know, you don't. But yeah, no, I don't know. I mean, it was survival mode. I mean, that's what my husband and I call it. It was straight up survival mode. And every month was a little bit less tired, and less absolutely insane than the one before. And, you know, I tell new parents all the time when it makes sense to tell them this, you know, it's, every once in a while, take a step back, like look back 6 months ago, look back a year ago, and look back a month ago, because, you know, you will get more sleep. You will shower daily again. You will put on real clothes at some point. And, you know, sometimes that depending on your situation, that's a couple weeks, and sometimes that's a couple years. And, yeah, I was pretty tired. I probably thought that I was doing better than I actually was. I probably thought that I was functioning better than I was. I probably thought that I was a better version of myself than I actually was. But, you know, what I've learned from that is just, you know, to give people grace, because there's that saying, like, you never know what they're going through.
Right. Yeah.
And ain't that the truth?
For sure. So just out of curiosity, how long were you in survival mode with your twins? When did it turn a corner? Mine are 4, FYI.
Yeah. I mean, gosh, I think there were a few times that we thought we were out of it, and we were like, ha ha ha, remember when? And then a year after that, we were like, whoa, yeah, we were still totally in it. I mean, we went 18 months again, because we didn't know anybody. Right. So there wasn't anybody that we could be like, just, can you come over so I can, so I can breathe for a minute,
go to the bathroom,
eat a sandwich, grocery, do something,
take a shower. Right. So yeah, I mean, it was just all we could possibly do to survive. Like we would break the nights in half when he was there. When he wasn't there, I don't remember. I don't remember what I did.
Goodness, I can't imagine.
Yeah. My mom was amazing. And she stayed here, you know, a couple nights at a time while she could, but she, you know, couldn't just stay. She's from Michigan. But yeah, I would say it was like a phase of like 3 weeks, and probably another phase that was, you know, another 3 months after that. And then it really turned a corner around 6 months, because then they really start to get in routines and stuff. And, you know, everyone's kind of sleeping. I always look back at it though and say, we got through that first year. I think once we got through their first birthday, it was like, okay, this is still really, really hard, but I think we're okay. I think we're gonna be okay. I wasn't standing in the shower just like crying anymore.
Right.
Yeah. It was a good year. So Jackson was 3 and the twins were 1.
And once you started getting more sleep, was that enough to take you out of what you would consider postpartum depression?
I'm sure it was a lot of things, but I think that that's been the biggest. And I think you cannot underestimate that. And again, I mean, really recently, I was talking about this just a minute ago. I was slowly becoming sleep deprived just recently and just found a way to get a little bit more sleep, and it changed everything. And so I think that I had a choice really recently. When you have tiny babies, you don't have so much of a choice.
Yeah.
But I think just knowing that when you do have, the whole "it takes a village" thing, that was a lesson I learned way too late. I've always been one I've had a hard time asking for help, especially when you don't have a natural village to begin with and you have to like proactively seek it out. But if you do have the opportunity to have some kind of support or help, use it to get sleep. It seems like when you're in that phase, you just want to get back to normal. Like you want to do dishes and you want to brush your hair and you want to get on Pinterest, like, cause that's what normal was before, sleep went away when the babies were born. Right. But use it to sleep, because then the whole world it's like somebody cleans a window, like you can see through it. Yeah.
Or use it to find someone who can help you sleep. I know some people have shared, and I'm one of them. Insomnia was such even when the babies, any of them would sleep, there would be so many things off from anxiety or depression or sleep deprivation that I could no longer sleep when given the opportunity. So I would say the same, like ask for help, find a professional and find a way to get it.
100%. Yeah. It seems like one of those things that's, depending on who you are, it seems frivolous, which seems crazy, but it's foundational.
Yeah. When people would ask us if, can we bring over a meal? I'm like, I'm good on food. Can you just come over so I can sleep? All I wanted was for someone to come over so I could sleep. Thankfully people did do that. So that was kind. I want to ask this too, Lindsay. So much of what we hear on this podcast is it takes a village. And you just said the exact same thing. Well, you were in a place where you didn't have a village. How did you find a village in a new spot? Because I think that can be a really intimidating process.
Definitely.
If you don't have one.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. So, I met a group of amazing mom friends through daycare. We all ended up with 2 sets of kids, which is kind of incidental because we all became friends with our first set of kids that is not all now in 3rd grade. And they're all in the same age when they were 2 or 3 years old. And they all started going to, birthday parties. And so we would stand at Bounce You holding everybody's coats next to each other. And, the more often you do that, the more it's like, hey, yeah, I remember I saw you last week at Sky Zone. And, so we just did that and said, our kids would beg for, can we play? And so we were like, sure, let's do this thing. And it was first time play dates for all of us. We were all kind of first time parents, and I don't know what a play date is, but I guess it means you come over to my house. Do I stay? I don't know you.
Right.
And, that led to we knew I knew this person and they knew that person. And those 2 other people knew each other. And we just ended up at somebody's house and just got to know each other. And I think
really,
and I think it's hard to seek out something like that, but to be open to something like that, and when that group of people it's being vulnerable and being open and kind of letting that kind of thing happen. And then another village a couple of years later that we found was, through church, a great small group, an amazing group of people that, again, just let yourself be open to something like that is there and is put in front of you. Yeah. And then again, even more recently is this Rise and Thrive group with Rebecca. So kind of different seasons kind of present different villages, right? And you've got to lead into them all because, it's so important. It is so important.
Definitely. So what about, well, before we go to the story you want to remember, is there anything else you want to add before we turn a corner?
I think, I mean, we kind of covered it. It's just, for anyone that can relate, that might be listening, who's in that situation, is do not underestimate the value of sleep and help. Cause I certainly did.
Yeah.
And it, looking back, it takes a toll on a lot of things. I mean, the one regret that I have, and I try not to have many, is just how different would things have been if I had not been so exhausted. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, how about a story you want to remember?
This one's hard. And I said this before we got started too, is there's a lot I want to remember. Mm-hmm. I want to remember all the good things, all the sweet smiles, and, when my kids were really little, and it's hard when you start to realize like, oh, that doesn't happen anymore. Right. Yeah. But on Saturday mornings, like the stupidly early wake up times, like they'd get up at 5 a.m. and we would come downstairs and just snuggle up on the couch and watch some ridiculous cartoon, being half awake and kind of angry that I was awake, but also just soaking up the soft jammies, sweet smelling little fuzzy heads and stuff. And I don't ever want to forget that. But I think, I was going to talk about this, that we've taken one vacation just as a family of 5. Like we've kind of gone and visited friends and things like that. And for me, that's hard to do. It's really hard for me to step away from everything else that's going on, from work, from life, from, hey, if we do get time off, we should probably try to do a whole bunch of things and go with other people and try to make all the things happen. But something about that trip, and the kids keep bringing it up too. We just went up to Northern Michigan, and it wasn't even that crazy. It was just time together and seeing how happy, like genuine, like joy. It wasn't even just happiness, it was joy of just being together, and how valuable that was. I don't want to forget that because it was great memories, but I also don't want to forget that because it's hard for me. It's hard for me to take those breaks. It's hard for me to be like, no, it's fine. Like we'll just stay home, or we'll spend some time together while we do these other things. That's my default, my husband's default. And I'm glad that I have the memories of like a legit low-key family vacation, and, seeing them splashing in the water and being brothers and s'mores over the campfire kind of thing. Because it takes intentionality and it takes effort to disconnect like that. Like it's really hard, right? It's so much easier to like take a staycation and we'll just, we'll figure out something and we'll just kind of all function together in the same place. And before you know it, a couple of years go by, and that intentional getaway where you just have sweet, sweet time together.
Yeah.
Is few and far between. So.
Absolutely. Good for you guys.
I feel like there's something magical about being near the water as well.
I totally agree.
Colin's parents, have I already said this on the podcast before? Please forgive me, dear listeners, if I have. But they have a place on Lake Webster, which is about 2 hours north of here.
I don't think you have.
And they bought this little trailer on the lake right around the time that Colin and I started dating.
Okay.
So he brought me up there. When I first moved to Indiana, people always talked about going to the lakes. And I was like, okay, the lakes. Everyone's talking about the lakes. Is this one lake? Are we all going to the same place? What is happening here? But I found out for the shorts that meant going to Lake Webster. And that is when I was living in Arizona and they told you to picture your happy place when you're in, giving birth. Like I had a picture of that lake and I was imagining the water from that place. And even now, there is something that physically happens to my body when I go up there because, Lindsay, I'm like you, I have a hard time turning off. I have a hard time relaxing. But when I go up there, like I don't know what it is, but I can feel it happen in my body. And just those moments of being on the lake, watching the sunset, watching the kids, or being with the kids on that tube and screaming and singing and I realize how fortunate I am when I am in that place.
Yeah.
And I rarely stop to think of that, you know, in my everyday life. Oh, I'm so fortunate as I'm like wrangling them to brush their teeth.
Right.
And, you know, so having those moments that you can soak in when your body is relaxed and your mind is calm.
Yep.
Is really awesome.
It is. It's so true. And it is hard. It is hard for me. Like I have a very, very hard time with it, but you're right. Something about the water, and being away from all of the, you know, to-do lists and tasks, and just focusing on like intentionally slowing down and just actually looking at the sweet faces of your kids, like actually looking at their faces, like looking into their beautiful little eyes. It's hard when you realize how many moments go by without doing that, and how much effort it takes to go be in a place where that just starts to come naturally again. And so, yeah, I don't want to forget it, because too many more moments will go by again before I make that happen.
Yeah.
If I do. So
I wonder what it is. I've said a lot of times, this is the life. And I, a few years ago, thought, what is the common thread when I say that? And it was water.
Yeah.
And we go to Lake Michigan. Like, well, it's something I do. I think I've talked about this on the podcast, kind of impromptu, like we're going to skip school and we're going to go drive to the water, because something, as soon as we get to about Niles, Michigan, and I'm waiting, and I see the water, and it same thing, some physiological thing is happening. And there's something maybe even about realizing how small you are in comparison to a great big lake.
yeah,
That puts into perspective. It's almost like a type of mindfulness. You're so in the present in that setting. And I think it forces like just being aware of each other and the earth. And I totally know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
yep.
There's nothing like it. What are you laughing at?
Because I still remember a lot of our relationship happens over Marco Polo.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I still remember that she's like making lunches. She's like, hey, I decided I'm going to take all the kids and plus our neighbor kid up to Lake Michigan right now. So I'm packing up some lunches and I'm going to get in the car. And I'm like, what?
It was
What
like
are
an
you doing?
early release. They
It
got
was
out of
an early
school at noon. And I was like, 3 hours there.
And you drove back
Play
that
for
night.
4 hours.
And they
They'll
had
all be
school the next day.
Why not? I had
was
my
like,
5 and the neighbors
my
2. So they
gosh.
all entertain each other. Wendy's on the way. Wendy's on the way home.
Oh, so you weren't packing lunches then?
Maybe I was I packing lunch? Maybe
You
I
were packing something.
Snacks. I don't know. But hey, we didn't even
All
have
the
to
snacks.
stop on the way home for bathrooms or anything. I mean, the second we got in the car, they had played so hard in the waves. They slept the whole way home.
Yeah.
I was like,
I'll
you
do
are my
anything to get
favorite
to Lake
person.
Michigan. Anything.
That's insane.
I would never have the mental capacity to be able to do that.
I wouldn't even go to the pool at the front of the neighborhood. Like, let's be serious. I'm like,
It's free time. Oh, well, thank you for sharing those stories. I love that. I love the
course.
way you talk about when you started out talking about the fuzzy little heads and the pajamas. Like, it's so sweet. And it's such a good reminder to just
I know.
smell them and
Because before you know it, I mean, there will always be another thing, but before you know it, that like they don't do that anymore.
I know.
Yeah.
Right. And so now our Saturday mornings are like them playing on their iPads while I I don't know, watch them. Like, so yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
You guys, I'm such a fuddy-duddy mom now. Like they want to watch things on YouTube that I'm like, why are you watching this? This
Oh,
is,
like they're watching other kids play Minecraft or something. Yeah. I know.
I'm like,
Yeah.
why are you doing this?
Yeah. I just took YouTube off of our Apple TV everywhere because I was like, well, and God knows what can pop up there, but it just seemed like, for starters, we have a lot of messes in our house right now. And I thought, is it because I'm letting our twins watch these slime videos where they're dumping?
Yes, that is the
And
problem.
I mean, it's totally silent. They'll just sit there
Yeah.
and watch people
Captivating.
dump random things in a bowl. And I'm like, okay, there's a number of problems with this.
There's so much wrong with this here. There's so much wrong.
Oh my
What
goodness.
happened to the Smurfs? You know?
Right.
Let's watch some good old cartoons.
I know.
See what I mean? I'm an old
with
grumpy
you.
woman now.
Garfield.
Boy. Yeah.
Yes.
Want some Garfield.
Well, before you go, we want to make sure we do the mom seat.
Yes.
I'm going to put you on the spot here. Julie's pulling it up.
Okay. So, as you know, we'll give you 2 answers. You pick the one that resonates most with you.
Okay.
Here we go. Disposable or cloth?
Disposable. I hate to
Bottle?
say it, but
Bottle or breast?
bottle.
Pinterest mom or Amazon Prime mom?
Oh, loves Pinterest, buys on Amazon anyway.
Okay. Jeans?
Wishful thinking.
Jeans or yoga pants?
Oh, jeans at work, a yoga pants the second I come home.
Mm-hmm.
Top knot or ponytail?
Ponytail, but only because I don't know how to do a top knot.
Girl, we
We'll
need
teach
to.
you.
Yeah, do
We'll
a
get
tutorial.
We'll get
I
YouTube
need one.
installed on Sarah's phones and then show you.
Right.
I need it.
Home birth or hospital?
Oh, hospital, epidural all the way.
Chore chart or managing chaos?
I wish I could say it was a chore chart, but I'm totally just managing the chaos every day.
Okay. Gender reveal or find out when it pops out?
Gender reveal, but I didn't do it in any fun way.
Yeah. It doesn't, we're not saying you had to have like
Oh, okay.
cupcakes.
I wasn't that cool. I
It's
just
getting
found
extreme,
out.
guys.
It is.
Some
Well,
of these gender reveals. whew.
It wasn't even a thing when we thank the
God,
Lord.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Instagram or Facebook?
Instagram,
Homemade or store-bought?
homemade,
Lullabies or sound machine?
lullabies. I still sing them lullabies.
Oh, that's sweet.
5 servings of veggies per day or per month?
Oh, that's a sore spot for me because I wish it was daily, and I'm lucky if it's that many per month.
Okay.
Honestly.
President of the PTA or I'll send in some goldfish.
Oh, if I can even remember to send in the goldfish. Yeah.
Thank you for your.
Which actually reminds me, I think I'm supposed to do that back starting months ago for a snack. I don't think I've been doing that.
Hey,
So thanks for the reminder.
Welcome. You're
Yeah.
welcome. Bubble bath and a good book or girls' night out?
Girls' night out.
Weekly meal plan or McDonald's drive-thru?
Weekly meal plan.
Homeschool or go to school?
Go to school.
In your home, are you free bird or robed up?
Robed up.
Your favorite parenting resource?
My favorite parenting resource?
Yes.
Oh, my instinct.
Good.
Favorite place to buy kids' clothes?
Old Navy while on my couch on my phone.
Awesome.
Awesome. And you have completed the mom seat.
Woo!
Great
Good
job.
Made it.
Good job.
Well, thanks so much, Lindsay. We loved having you on.
Oh, it was so much fun to be here.
Yeah,
This was
thank you.
really fun. I love what you guys are doing. So thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. See ya.
Well, we hope you will come back next week on the Momnesia podcast, where we're going to share more stories before Momnesia sets in and we forget it all. Have a great week. Bye-bye.
Today's episode of Momnesia was recorded at Grace Church in Noblesville, Indiana, with original music by Phil Larson. Make sure to check out Grace's podcast Between Sundays and Phil's music on Spotify.